Hello and welcome to Exposed News Outlet, where we shed light on topics that matter most. I'm your host, Andrea. Today, we're exploring the current crisis we're facing as civil rights and the Constitution, as well as the rule of law itself, is being tested to the maximum, and Republicans try to play royalty and kingdomhood and seize powers from the co-equal branches of government, folks. Nowhere does it say that one is above the other. You would think after 2 impeachments, 90-some counts of felony fraud, he would have learned the Constitution and law by now. But no, instead, the organized crime factory, Heritage Group, plotted up the best assaults to end democracy altogether. A lot of it straight out of the Nazi handbook and other authoritarians. Literally, this speech is verbatim from the Trump campaign trail. And they put together part of it in a booklet called Mandate for Leadership. Hence them always claiming this some sort of self-proclaimed mandate. It's Project 2025, literally. Mandate for Leadership was the Project 2025. Now, Agenda 47. Because Project 2025 by name was very unpopular. So instead of implementing things that help people, they just lied to them and told them they don't know anything about Project 2025 and then started enacting it. Anyway, the unconstitutional attack on democracy and freedom. As we navigate the complexities of our world, it's essential to stay informed and engaged. By subscribing to our channel, enabling notifications, and sharing our content, you're supporting our mission to provide thought-provoking insights and inspire positive change. Thank you for being part of our community. It's time for a wake-up call, America. We're at a critical juncture where the truth can no longer be ignored. The Trump administration and the MAGA movement, more like a cult. Literally, it is a cult. Sorry, not trying to offend anyone, but they literally did brainwash and lie to all of their followers, constituents, in order to get the votes, and they're not really working for them, if they haven't figured that out yet. They're only working for the billionaires. Certainly not working for the American people, collectively, and they're working solely for the interests of the billionaires and self-serving. The corporations and the highest bidders, including tyrannical and unethical regimes. Think about it. Trump's cabinet is stacked to the roof with billionaires and industry insiders who are pushing policies that will only benefit themselves, not the average American. Certainly not the lower class, middle class. The tax handouts, deregulation, and the privatization of public goods, it's all designed to line the pocketbooks of the wealthy and the powerful. But here's the thing. This isn't just about economics. It's about values. It's about what kind of country we want to be. Do we want to be a nation that prioritizes the interests of the wealthy and powerful? Or do we want to be a nation that stands up for the rights and dignity of all people? The answer is clear. We must stand together and reject the Trump administration's agenda of greed and division. We must demand a government that works for all of us, not just the wealthy and powerful. So what can you do, you ask? First, educate yourself and others about the issues. Share this information with your friends and family. Use social media to spread the word. Then get involved in your community, attend rallies and protests, contact your elected officials, and demand that they stand up for the interest of the American people and their oath to uphold the Constitution. This is a moment of truth for our nation. We can either continue down the path of division and greed, or we can stand up together and demand a better future for all of us. The choice is ours. Let's make our voices heard and create a brighter future for America. Side note, I do kind of find it ironic that these same individuals that were trying to shame Kamala for having celebrities at her events are now, taken over by literally the elites into an enslavement, literally, because they're also plotting on removing at least 85 million jobs by robots and AI. That's why they had to come up with all these boogeymen and then try to mass deport them. And we're facing a catastrophic situation in America with the Trump administration's blatant disregard for court orders, pushing us to the brink of a constitutional crisis, which is why they try to deflect and accuse the judges of being the ones pushing us there. But no, it's them defying the court orders. They're co-equal branches. One isn't more powerful than the other. This is basic fundamentals in Hello. The situation is so dire that we're beyond the 5-alarm fire stage. We're at the point where democracy is unconscious, flatlining, and needs revival. The Trump administration's defiance of court orders is a stark reminder of the dangers of unchecked power. Despite a federal judge's temporary block on deporting Venezuelans under the Alien Enemies Act of 1798, because that's modern, the administration sent deportation flights to El Salvador. This blatant disregard for the law has sparked new concerns about the administration's commitment to democracy. Furthermore, the administration's actions are not only a threat to democracy, but also a clear example of organized crime. The Heritage Group, Fox News, and other allies of the administration are complicit in spreading propaganda and undermining the rule of law. It's time to hold them accountable. Elon Musk's unchecked power is also a significant concern. His ability to spread propaganda and manipulate public opinion through his platforms, including SpaceX, Starlink, and X, is a threat to democracy. He should be forced to divest these assets to prevent further manipulation, because he's actually even looking to put brain chips and Neuralink technology into brains to further control people's thoughts. We cannot afford to sit idly by while democracy is destroyed. We must take to the streets and demand that those responsible be expelled and charged for their crimes, and fight for the restoration of democracy. Elon Musk's involvement in the U.S. government has raised concerns about conflicts of interest and the influence of wealth on policy decisions. As the world's richest man, Musk's actions have significant implications for the country's governance and social programs. Musk's role in the Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE, which, by the way, is not a department. Departments are Congress approved. This is a committee, and he shouldn't have these powers, these unchecked powers, with a police and FBI and U.S. Marshal Force. I mean, WTF. Pause. If Biden were president right now and George Soros was doing this, these motherfuckers would be having bricks coming out of their ends. Anyway, DOGE has been particularly contentious Doge aims to streamline government operations and reduce waste, but critics argue that it's a vehicle for Musk to impose his own vision on the government and pick up the pieces that he's cutting off. In fact, more information just recently came out about the Social Security and private information that they got access to, and actually Doge employees still have access to this information. There's no reason for it, and now it's copied into their hard drives. This is the information that all of these companies pay for, and that's exactly why Musk wanted it. Plus now he could literally hack into any of these people. This is just unconscionable. The potential cuts to Social Security are especially alarming, given that the program is funded by separate deductions from taxpayers' checks. Social Security is a critical safety net for millions of Americans, and reducing its funding could have devastating consequences for vulnerable populations and marginalized communities. It's also worth noting that Musk's business interests, particularly in SpaceX and Tesla, have benefited significantly from government contracts and subsidies. This raises questions about whether Musk's involvement in government is driven by the desire to serve the public interest or to advance his own business interests. Ultimately, the situation highlights the need for greater transparency and accountability in government, as well as stricter regulations on the influence of wealth and corporate interests on policy decisions. The notion that Social Security is depleting and needs to be cut is a misleading narrative. In reality, the program's funding issues are largely due to the disproportionate wealth held by the top 1%, who aren't contributing their fair share to the system. Billionaires and corporations are often able to exploit tax loopholes and deductions, which reduces their tax liability and starves Social Security of much-needed revenue. This is exacerbated by the fact that the Social Security tax cap has not kept pace with inflation or the growth of wealth among the top earners. Watch this clip with Robert Reach.
Here's the real reason Social Security is in danger that nobody's talking about. It's not just because too many boomers like me are retiring. It's because of inequality. Now, I don't want to alarm you. Social Security is still helping us oldies enjoy our golden years, mostly on the pickleball court, but only for so long. Social Security is one of the most popular and successful government programs ever created, not only helping retirees, but it's also keeping 26 million people out of poverty. Yet here's the problem. It's going to run out of money before you can ever receive it if the rich don't start paying their fair share. The trustees of Social Security, of which yours truly was once a member back when I had thicker hair, say the program will only be able to pay full benefits until 2033. After that, Social Security will only be able to dole out roughly 77% of benefits. Why? It's not the reason that many seem to think.
And we're going to have more and more baby boomers who are going to be collecting Social Security.
Boomer retirees like me might be soaking up some sun, but we're not soaking up all of the program's funds. The Social Security trustees anticipated the boom in boomer retirements. This is why Social Security was amended back in 1983 to gradually increase the age for collecting full retirement benefits from age 65 to age 67. That change is helping finance the boomers' retirement. What did the trustees fail to anticipate? A much larger chunk of the nation's total income is now going to the top compared to decades ago. But income subject to the Social Security payroll tax is capped. No dollar of earnings above the cap is taxed. The cap in 2023 is $160,200. So, as the rich have become far richer, more and more of the nation's total income has escaped the Social Security payroll tax. For example, a CEO earning $20 million a year pays Social Security taxes on roughly 1% of their income, while a worker earning under the cap pays Social Security taxes on 100% of their income. As more of the nation's income has gone to the super rich, logically, a larger share of the nation's income goes untaxed for Social Security. This is why widening inequality has cost the Social Security Trust Fund an estimated $1.4 trillion since 1983. The solution is obvious. It's time to scrap the cap and make the rich pay more in Social Security taxes. One plan introduced in Congress would eliminate the cap on earnings over $250,000 and also subject investment income to Social Security taxes. It's estimated that this would extend the solvency of Social Security for the next 75 years without raising taxes on 93% of American households. This is where you come in. Share this video and help spread the word about the real threat to Social Security and what can be done about it. If we want to ensure Social Security's long-term future and that working people can retire with dignity, we must make the wealthy pay their fair share.
Raising or eliminating the Social Security tax cap, as well as implementing more progressive taxation policies, could help ensure the long-term solvency of the program. This would also help reduce income inequality, as well as the wealthy would be contributing a more equitable share of their income to support vital social programs. It's essential to reframe the conversation around Social Security and recognize that the issues isn't the program itself, but rather the unfair tax system that's failing to support it. By making billionaires and corporations pay their fair share, we can protect and strengthen Social Security for future generations to come. Another way that could help as well would be to legalize marijuana and tax that as well, like many of the states that have legalized it, since it's decriminalized and it should be legalized, and the taxes from that could go to a lot of these as well and take care of and a lot of these false claims, including Elon Musk's falsehoods and blatant lies that Social Security is a Ponzi scheme. He is just a greedy, malignant, narcissist psychopath and was called out by Senator John Larson. Watch this powerful clip.
The men and women on this committee are good people. They're honest and caring people. And that's why I do not understand why you would relegate this committee to no longer being of significance and resort to saying you will do whatever Elon Musk and Donald Trump tell you to do. Where's the independence of the committee? Where's the legislature? We're an equal branch of government. And you start off with a blather, and yet look at the empty seats here. Where's Elon Musk? I'm sure he's a genius and is a very credible person because of the wealth he's accumulated. But that does not put him above the law or the responsibility to come before this committee in this Congress. If he's so great, if these plans and all the fraud and abuse that he's found are so eminent, why isn't he here explaining it? You know why. Because he's out to privatize Social Security. He's been on television the last couple of days talking exactly about Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid, and what he intends to do. Privatize it. The American people, some of them may have been born at night, but not last night. People are aware of this. Every single one of your districts, all the money that comes in monthly, and you have not done, you as a Congress have not done anything in more than 54 years. And now you have someone coming in to privatize a system, something you have longed to do going back to 1982, because Elon Musk thinks that this is the best thing to do. President Trump has called Social Security a scam. Elon Musk, as the chairman, as Mr. Neal said, called it a Ponzi scheme. Ask that of the people in your district. Ask that, Mr. Smith, of the more than 198,000 people in your district who rely on Social Security, and you won't even let the person who's planning to privatize it, who's telling the big lie in front of everyone, in bold as he possibly can, saying, this is what we're going to do. The Congress is in our back pocket. We don't even have to come before them and testify because we control the House, we control the Senate, and we control the presidency. And it's the tyranny of the executive. It's why these resolutions were first adopted back in 1789, because the founding fathers knew that the executive branch does not have total authority over the legislature unless you have a willing party that says, no, we're going to do exactly what you tell us to do, Mr. Musk and Mr. President. It doesn't matter to our constituents. It doesn't matter how much money they are not going to receive. We're not even going to tell them the truth about what's going to happen to them. And every single one of these districts where they're being shut down and their personnel, and as Mr. Neal said, Dan, after you cut and eliminate the people, say the agency isn't responding accordingly. No other agency operates for under less than 1%. With that, they administer to over 70 million people in the nation's #1 anti-poverty program for the elderly and children. Shame! Shame! Can't bring people in front of this body? If he's right, if they're so good, if they're so just, why aren't they here telling the American people about it? They're not, because you know the truth. It's about privatization.
For weeks now, town hall after town hall, one question, one topic comes up again and again and again at every single one of these Q&A sessions. And it's one of those issues that, again, you just can't be on the wrong side of in American politics. But Republicans are this year, thanks to Donald Trump and Elon Musk. Watch.
Our next question is from Polly from a 288 zip code area. What are you doing to ensure the protection of our Social Security benefits?
Good question.
I really want to know from you, will you protect Social Security in its current form?
Next question. What are your plans to cut Social Security?
I want to be this is a very easy question for me to answer. Any changes to Social Security are not on the table, and I will not cut your Social Security. It is a promise between you and the federal government.
Social Security is a promise between you and the federal government. Congressman Mike Flood doing his best yesterday in Nebraska, and you could hear his constituents reacting. If his constituents are feeling a little insecure about Social Security, there's good reason for that. In addition to Social Security firing thousands of people who work at that agency and announcing plans to shut down dozens of Social Security field offices, the agency now plans to put new requirements in place that will send millions more people to local offices in person, if they can find one, instead of being able to solve things with the administration over the phone. An internal memo from top officials at Social Security says 75 to 85,000 more people each week, senior citizens and disabled people, will have to deal with their Social Security benefits in person because of the changes Trump is making. 75 to 85,000 more customers in person per week while the agency is shutting down offices and firing their staff. These new rules are no longer just proposals. They are apparently set to take effect March 31st, a week and a half from now.
Look at the empty seats here. Where's Elon Musk? If he's so great, if these plans and all the fraud and abuse that he found are so evident, why isn't he here explaining it? You know why. Because he's out to privatize. Social Security. He's been on television the last couple of days talking exactly about Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid, and what he intends to do. Privatize it. The American people, some of them may have been born at night, but not last night.
They will teach that clip in freshman orientation for new members of Congress, if there's any justice in the world. The moment when Connecticut Democratic Congressman John Larson pretty much burned down the barn over the issue of Social Security and what Trump and his top campaign donor are doing to it. Congressman, thank you so much for joining us tonight. I really appreciate taking the time.
Oh, glad to be with you, Rachel. And thank you for your voice.
Well, let me ask you about your voice. You gave a real clarion call in Congress last week. We highlighted that here on the show. I wanted to ask what you are hearing from your constituents. I know you just had a town hall, and I know you got a lot of attention
I did just have
for those
the
remarks.
same thing. There's frustration across the country and in the districts. And most of the time it's individuals saying, well, look, we don't hear enough from Congress, even though I assure you, and I think you know this, how hard everyone's working, et cetera. But this particular proposal that they had was a resolution that actually started back in the 1799 and was modified in 1879, which provides a check for the legislative branch on the executive branch. The resolution of inquiry requires that they take the bill up within 14 days, or the bill goes directly to the floor for a vote. So what the Republicans did was adjourn the Congress on Tuesday night, hold a meeting Monday morning early with little people there, and clearly, as you saw from the clip, no Elon Musk and no head of the Social Security Administration. And the outrage here is what they're doing, and the fact that they think that Elon Musk is above the law and that he doesn't have to come before the United States Congress or the Ways and Means Committee. I think my Republican colleagues were embarrassed by this fact, but we're going to keep it up. Rich Neal was in the papers again today calling for another, motion of inquiry so that we get Elon Musk before the committee and demand answers for the American people.
What do you think they are trying to do to Social Security? The changes that they are forcing through, that they now say are going to start the last day of this month, seem like they are changes that are designed to cause chaos, designed to cause breakdown, and designed to screw up the basic functions of the agency. To what end? What do you think they're doing?
I think you hit the nail on the head with the hammer there, Rachel, because that's exactly what they're doing. And here's the goal. What they're trying to do is say in the committee that Trump's indicated that he's not going to touch Social Security. And the Republicans continue to repeat. And all Elon Musk is after is fraud, abuse, and waste. Well, if he is, bring it before us because we'd like to hear it. In fact, bring him before us so we get to see his plan. But the plan, unlike previous plans to privatize Social Security, is to scuttle the agencies themselves. Social Security already is trim. It has an administrative operating cost of under 1%. There's no other agency in the federal government that operates like that, or I dare say in the private sector either. I'm from an insurance capital of the world, and their administrative costs are 16 to 26%. So what they're up to is to scuttle the agency, make it appear that it's not working and not answering people's concerns, and then passing legislation that's unpaid for, draining the Social Security Trust Fund. When Trump charges him with finding $2 trillion, everybody's attention should go up when you look at the Social Security Trust Fund, which is $2.7 trillion. And so he's made no bones about it on Larry Kudlow or any other place that they're going to privatize it. And then they deny that in front of the committee and won't bring them in front of the Ways and Means Committee to face the public and to face the questions that Congress has.
Congressman John Larson, Democrat of Connecticut, please come back and talk to us about this. I know you're not going to let it go. Thank you, sir.
I look forward to it, Rachel. Thank you so much.
All right. Of course.
The time for action is now. We owe it to ourselves, our children, and the future of America, and the world for that matter, to take a stand against this authoritarian regime and fight for the preservation of democracy. Trump and his allies, including the Heritage Foundation and MAGA supporters, have been working on a comprehensive plan to undermine democracy and consolidate power. This plan is known as Project 2025, outlines a strategy to dismantle federal agencies, bypass Congress, and install loyalists throughout the government. There's literally a 14-hour training video about it, and a 922-page manual booklet. Over a third's already been enacted. At the heart of this plan is Trump's desire to become a dictator, a king, basically. What America was founded to get away from. Trump's desire to become a dictator with unchecked power over federal agencies and the ability to bypass Congress. His allies, including former White House staff members like Mark Meadows and Stephen Miller, are working to make this vision a reality. Project 2025 is a 920-page manual that provides a roadmap for Trump's second term, in which they've already enacted over a third of, by the way. Like I said earlier, and a lot of these governors started enacting the policies last year, including Kim Reynolds of Iowa and many others. The plan includes proposals to consolidate power, give the president unchecked power over federal agencies and the ability to bypass Congress, dismantle federal agencies, eliminate or significantly reduce the power of federal agencies such as the Department of Education and the Environmental Protection Agency. And sadly, this is what we kept warning, and Kamala kept warning, and everybody kept saying, no, it's not true. Yeah, it turns out it was true. Install loyalists, appoint loyalists to key government positions, ensuring that Trump's agenda is implemented without opposition. That's why it's so important that we have to vote in every election. Every year there's an election. We need to start voting in every local election and voting all of these sycophants out. Undermine free and fair elections, implement measures to restrict voting rights, and undermine the integrity of electoral process, which they've been working hard on with this as well. That's why we have to stand together, demand accountability, and honestly, we need to demand a new election. These people should be tried for the crimes they've already committed. The Heritage Foundation, a conservative think tank, is playing a key role in promoting Project 2025. The foundation's leadership, including its president, Kevin Roberts, has stated that the organization's goal is to institutionalize Trumpism and ensure that Trump's agenda is implemented. WTF. Overall, Trump and his allies are working to undermine democracy and install a dictatorship. Their plan, as outlined in Project 2025, their handbook, is a comprehensive and disturbing attempt to consolidate power and eliminate checks and balances altogether on the executive branch. Many Trump supporters believed that he would improve the economy, mistakenly attributing the growth during Obama's presidency to Trump's policies. However, top economists warned that Trump's tariffs and policies would lead to higher inflation, slower economic growth, and harm to U.S. workers and consumers, most likely a deep recession. In reality, Trump's tariffs have already caused significant economic damage. A study by the New York Federal Reserve found that the tariffs imposed on Chinese imports could lead to a fresh inflation jolt. Not to mention, they've already literally threatened combat war. They said F a trade war. We're ready for an all-out war, which now the Pentagon just released information that they're going over plans if this should happen, blah, 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 and letting Elon sit in on upcoming, like, what? He's not even, he shouldn't even be in any of this information to begin with anyway, because he's not even, he doesn't have a national security clearance, and then to sit in on such top secret information, especially when he has so much, he has factories in China and very close ties with both Russia and China, and it's just, Anyway, this could lead to a fresh inflation jolt, with U.S. consumers facing larger consequences than expected. Furthermore, Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell stated that the tariffs, Trump's national sales tax is what I call them because that's what they are, would delay progress in bringing down inflation this year. It's essential to recognize that Trump's policies, including his tariffs and tax cuts, have primarily benefited corporations and the wealthy, rather than the average American. In fact, his policies have benefited Putin and Russia more than the average American. Kamala Harris's policies, on the other hand, focused on making life more affordable, including affordable housing, which could have had a more positive impact on the economy. This situation is indeed dire, and it's crucial to take action. Organizing protests and rallies can be an effective way to raise awareness and push for change. It's time to take to the streets in large numbers and demand better economic policies and hold the elected officials accountable. We also, first of all, we need to expel these imbeciles in office right now. And we also need the Democratic leadership to step it up as well and fight harder for us. As AOC said, she was actually out on the road saying that very thing, and I have to say I agree with her. I have a clip I can show you on that.
Medicaid, Medicare, and Social Security were promises that we as a people have made to each other about the kind of country we are and the kind of society we want to live in. And I don't know about you, Arizona, but I want to live in an America that guarantees health care to every person. I want to live in an America that has a living wage for every person. I want to live in America where you have free speech to express yourself and not be afraid of getting put on a list or deported. But these promises that we've made, they are not promises from politicians to the people, or they're not charity from billionaires to everyday Americans. They are promises we have made to each other. Neighbor to neighbor, friend to friend, teacher to student, family member to family member. That we want to live in a society that is not depraved, not every person for themselves, but all of us standing together. This is the promise that we make to each other as Americans. This isn't just about Republicans either. We need a Democratic Party that fights harder for us too. Here's what that means. That means our communities, each and every one of us, choosing and voting for Democrats and elected officials who know how to stand for the working class. Defend your champions, defend your elected officials taking risks to fight for us, and don't stop there. I want you to look at every level of office around and support Democrats who fight, because those are the ones who can actually win against Republicans. We're here together because an extreme concentration of power and corruption is taking over this country like never before. And we are here, most importantly, because we know that a better, world is possible. We are witnessing an oligarchy in America when those with the most economic, political, and technological power destroy the public good to enrich themselves while millions of us pay the price. And ironically, the most divisive forces in our country are actually bringing more of us together than before. They will throw out every label and judgment and cultural debate in the book to keep us distracted. We need to be taxing the rich on the floor of the United States Congress. We need to be establishing guaranteed health care on the floor of the United States Congress, not erasing American history on the floor of the United States Congress. We need to be passing a living wage on the floor of the United States Congress. And we're going to send a message to Donald Trump and Elon Musk and every Republican in the state of Arizona that we will not be distracted. We got our eyes on the prize, and we will build the nation that we want for ourselves.
Steve Bannon's recent appearance on Chris Cuomo's show, spinning propaganda as always, has raised eyebrows as he openly discussed plans to ensure Trump's presidency for another term, or even remove term limits altogether. Honestly, I wouldn't even doubt if this is one of the reasons why he's trying to instigate a war with all of these countries, trying to call out and start a war with Panama, with Canada, our allies, everyone, anyone and everyone. Because he knows that even with Putin's case, Putin was able to stay in office because he's in war, and he knows that, well, if the troops come back from war, they'll start telling the truth about everything, and he keeps trying to prolong it. And this is what these slime bags do, you know? Anyway, Bannon confidently stated that they would have multiple ways to achieve this goal, sparking concerns about the undermining of democratic institutions. This is also a violation of their oath to the Constitution, as I said before. Not to mention, insurrectionists aren't even supposed to be able to hold office, so Bannon's comments are particularly alarming given his close ties to Trump and his involvement in shaping Trump's agenda. It's clear that Bannon and other Trump allies are willing to push the boundaries of democratic norms to maintain power. This isn't the first time Bannon has made headlines for his controversial statements. He's been known to make provocative comments, and his recent remarks on Cuomo's show are just the latest example. The implications of Bannon's comments are significant, as they suggest a willingness to disregard the Constitution's term limits and undermine the democratic process. It's essential to remain vigilant and ensure that these attempts to subvert democracy are met with resistance and accountability. In fact, these blatant attacks on democracy and lawless actions and attacks on the Constitution are enough for impeachment and altogether, but Trump's administration has indeed taken a drastic step by attempting to freeze $175 million in funding to the University of Pennsylvania. This move is reportedly in response to the university's transgender sports policies, which the administration claims are discriminatory. No, you're discriminating. WTF. Like, they're completely trying to reshape and what words mean and what reality is. Up is down, and, you know, that kind of thing. The funding freeze is part of a broader effort by the Trump administration to oppress and enforce its fascist policies on universities and colleges. It's also a Project 2025 tactic and attack. This includes a recent executive order banning diversity, equity, and inclusion programs, DEI, at businesses and organizations that contract with the federal government. Mary, please. Queens. Drama queens. The implications of this move are far-reaching, though, with many universities and colleges relying heavily on federal funding for research, student aid, and other programs. The freeze could have a significant impact on the university's ability to operate and provide services to its students. It's worth noting that this move has been met with widespread criticism from educators, students, and civil rights groups. Many see this as an attack on academic freedom, diversity, and inclusion. The university has stated that it has always followed NCAA and Ivy League policies regarding student participation on athletic teams and remains in compliance with applicable regulations. Republicans, particularly those aligned with Trump, are increasingly open about their disdain for democratic institutions and the rule of law. This is evident in their attempts to dismantle term limits and undermine the independence of the judiciary altogether. For instance, Trump's recent call to impeach a federal judge who ruled against his administration's deportation plans is a stark example of this trend. The judge's decision was based on a thorough examination of the law, but Trump's response was to attack the judge's integrity and call for their impeachment. This kind of behavior is not only unbecoming of a president, but also undermines the very foundations of democracy. Furthermore, Republicans have been actively working to dismantle the independence of institutions like the Voice of America, a government-funded media outlet that has been a beacon of free and independent journalism for decades. The recent gutting of the outlet's staff and funding is a clear attempt to silence critical voices and undermine the free flow of information. The Heritage Foundation, a conservative think tank, has also been instrumental in promoting policies that undermine democratic institutions. Their plan, known as Project 2025, outlines a strategy to dismantle federal agencies, bypass Congress, and install loyalists throughout the government. This is a clear recipe for authoritarianism, not democracy, not American values. Donald Trump's relentless pursuit of destruction, particularly when it comes to the Kennedy legacy, is a disturbing trend. It's as if he's determined to erase the progress and positivity associated with the Kennedy name. Remember when Melania cut down the roses in the White House Rose Garden during the first Trump term? Now, plans are underway to pave over the garden and replace it with a patio, eerily reminiscent of Mar-a-Lago's style. This is what Trump and Doge calls efficiency. It's nothing but a blatant disregard for history and tradition. Trump's takeover of the Kennedy Center is another example of his disdain for the Kennedy legacy. He fired several staff members, including one who was allegedly let go because of his sexual orientation. I mean, what is this, the 1950s? This kind of discriminatory behavior is unacceptable, especially from someone in a position of power. Watch this clip.
And we have to really escalate the noise we make so that we'll be heard.
Welcome to Gay USA. I'm Andy Hum. I'm Ann Northrup, suffering from spring allergies, so please excuse me if I sneeze or sniff or whatever.
And we start with some good news. A lesbian judge, a federal judge, has issued an injunction against Trump's ban on transgender service members.
Really stunning. We told you about this case. Well, it's now come to a decision. And a federal judge has ordered Elon Musk to reinstate USAID.
Ohio's ban on gender-affirming care for minors is overturned by a state appeals court.
Now, that's the end of the good news. The CDC is looking to close the Division of HIV Prevention. And the Department of Veteran Affairs does cut off veterans from gender-affirming care.
Harvey Fierstein has been banned from the Trump Kennedy Center.
I made a whole list of other LGBT playwrights who would be eligible for similar
Shakespeare? Bisexual, excuse me.
I didn't go back quite that far.
Okay.
Voting for a Supreme Court justice in Wisconsin is underway in the $60 million race, which ends April 1st.
This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org. I'm Amy Goodman. As we turn to the Trump administration's intensifying attacks on cultural institutions and diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts, including the John F. Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts. In February, President Trump ousted the center's longtime chair, David Rubenstein, made himself chair of the board. Trump also fired longtime president Deborah Rutter. Last week, the Kennedy Center fired at least 7 members of its social impact initiative, including its vice president, artistic director, the renowned artist Mark Joseph. The team aimed to expand the Art Center's reach to diverse audiences to commission new works by Black composers. The job terminations come weeks after President Trump took over the Kennedy Center and also appointed his allies, including his chief of staff, Susie Wiles, to the board, and her mother, and Second Lady Usha Vance, and 2 hosts on Fox News, Laura Ingraham and Maria Bartiromo. Mark Joseph recorded this video from his office just after he was fired.
Well, I am sitting in my office at the Kennedy Center one last time. It's funny. I'm taking things down like this red, black, and green American flag and this extraordinary piece of artwork that my man Greg made that honors Stevie Wonder, and this poster from BAM, and a commemorative album that was organized by Swiss Beats. Basically, I'm taking down everything Black in my office, just as the new leadership of the Kennedy Center is doing its best to disavow much of the literal color that has made this place special. I'm grieving and angry and also ready to be rid of the moral injury that has come with being in this place. It's hard to say goodbye, but it isn't hard to say goodbye to an oppressive situation. So, may liberation be my liturgy. I'm proud of what we made here. We will always have an impact.
Mark Joseph, speaking after he was fired as vice president and artistic director of social impact at the Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts, the last time he was in his office. And this is a portion from Mark Joseph's spoken word performance Friday, when he went back to Oakland for a timely production with the Oakland Symphony titled The Forgiveness Suite, accompanied by musician Daniel Bernard Remain.
Steps to grace. Face the hurt. Unthread the truth. Choose mercy. Engage your transgressor. Say, I leave this pain with you. Grace requires a loosening of other people's stuff for American socialized black girls who considered shame reflexively when self-love wasn't enough. Grace is never enough when the forgiveness isn't deserved. But here you are, facing the truth, reconciling the pain by extending grace.
You've been listening to Mark Bamuthi Joseph. He joins us right now from Virginia. Welcome to Democracy Now!, Bamuthi. Talk about what happened last week. Talk about what's happening to the Kennedy Center.
Peace, Amy. Good morning to you, and good morning to everyone listening and watching. I feel so privileged to be the child of immigrants, and having lived in the state of California for a long time, moving to D.C. infused me with a different sense of patriotism and connection to the American promise, to the plurality that makes this country truly great. There has been, as you've distilled, an infusion of a kind of binary political discourse into what's supposed to be a sanctuary for freedom of thought and freedom of creative expression. The Kennedy Center, it should be said, has not officially canceled any performances or explicitly, contractually remove themselves from relationship to any artist. But as you've been describing so diligently and so bravely over the course of your entire career, we create atmosphere through rhetoric. The stated agenda, as institutionalized in spaces like the National Endowment for the Arts, let's say, severely restricts and almost criminalizes demographic realities outside of white, straight, male Christianity. The specific attack on gay, trans, and drag performers has narrowed the cultural radius at the Kennedy Center significantly, so that artists feel like they can't, in good conscience, come to the Kennedy Center. So you're seeing artists like Issa Rae or the producers of Hamilton or the artists Rhiannon Giddens remove themselves from their relationship to the Kennedy Center. And that in turn trickles down to the brave staff who are arts professionals who care about cultural provenance and have to do their very best to make it possible for artists to continue to be at their best. But against the backdrop of this oppressive regime and this politically narrow board of directors, that's extraordinarily difficult to do.
I mean, you have this unbelievable moment that we just played. Jon Batiste playing Star Spangled Banner. President Trump is saluting at the Super Bowl, and he had just fired him from the board of trustees of the Kennedy Center, along with many others. And then John F. Kennedy, you've got the portrait there in the John F. Kennedy Performing Arts Center. And when he came for his board meeting, President Trump as chair, what he put up new portraits, himself, his wife, Usha Vance, and Vice President Vance.
Yeah, you know, what you're seeing all over government are folks who aren't necessarily experienced in the lines or departments or vectors of action that they're supposed to lead. And there is no formal experience in either nonprofits, arts management, or the art of curation that is now present at the top of the organizational chart, beginning with the board chair. So, you know, the desire to satisfy, you know, one's ego, or the desire to be vengeful, apparently has superseded the desire to serve this nation in terms of making safe space for artists, particularly artists from historically marginalized communities or historically minoritized communities, to thrive. The work that we did in social impact, and I'm so proud of my team, my staff, and all of my colleagues who supported us. That work was meant to focus on the historically marginalized, but also it connected to this idea of the constitutionality of inspiration. Our belief is that you cannot have access to the franchise, to the American franchise, if you don't have access to the impulse of creativity. That just like you have access to the ballot box or under equal protection under the law, under the 14th Amendment, you also have access and protection to inspiration. How can you be an American if you cannot hope? And who authors hope more than artists? So this diminishment of creativity, of ideas, the diminishment of folks' access to high-level inspired works of art is among the more un-American things I think that a leader would do.
During your time there, Mark Bamuthi Joseph, you helped launch the Culture Caucus, which offered 2-year residencies with groups that work with queer and trans youth, formerly incarcerated people, the disabled community. You also established a national partnership called Conflux, which worked with the National Arab Orchestra, the First Nations community, and World Pride. Your audience, mainly wealthy and white. And can you talk about the direction that Trump is now taking the Performing Arts Center in? We heard from Steve Bannon, one of his allies, that he had spoken to Rick Gurnell, the new head of the Kennedy Center, that they're going to be bringing one of the first performances, the January 6th choir, to perform there, to usher in a new era of culture in the new Kennedy Center.
Yeah, I won't speak to the president's curatorial tastes. They speak for themselves. I think maybe what I would point to is the list of maybe more than 200 musicians who didn't want their music played at his rallies. That speaks to a broader environment, I think, and disconnect between the arts community and the political direction of the president of the United States. All the work that you cited, that's the work that we stand on and that we're proud of. You know, your listeners and your viewers know going out to have a date night or a family night is increasingly expensive. Parking and food and, not to mention the cost of the tickets themselves, childcare. A lot of the work that we did was we lowered the barrier to entry from a financial standpoint, but also from a social standpoint. You know, my folks always want to know who all gonna be there, right? Well, what we did in social impact was we helped usher in a culture of invitation. The Kennedy Center, historically, at its best, produces more than 2,000 events a year. So maybe less than focus on what happens curatorially. I think we all have to ask ourselves how many artists are willing to come into a space with such a narrow field of cultural vision. What is the scale of the Kennedy Center going to be like 6 months from now or a year from now? What happens inside the building is only as powerful as the people and the artists within it. So, God bless all the curators at the Kennedy Center, but maybe more importantly, God bless the artists who now have perhaps one less venue to share their work with the world, and then God bless the audiences. Because audiences or, American citizens, folks who have less access to inspiration, erode the democracy from the point of a lack of sight onto the creative horizon.
I wanted to also ask you, Bamuthi, about Trump's executive order signed last week appointing the vice president, J.D. Vance, to eliminate, quote, divisive race-centered ideology, unquote, from Smithsonian museums, research centers, and the National Zoo. The order, called Restoring Truth and Sanity to American History, aims to remove exhibits and programs that portray U.S. history and values as inherently harmful and oppressive, unquote. It cites, in particular, the National Museum of African American History and Culture, which opened in 2016. The Smithsonian operates independently since it was established as a public-private partnership by Congress in 1846, but roughly receives 60% of its funding from the federal government. You're an Oakland guy, but you've moved to Washington for your job that you were just fired from, and I'm sure you've spent time at the African American Museum. The significance of putting Vance in charge of deciding what exhibits are appropriate or not, what is American or not?
Yeah. It is chilling. It is a harbinger. It is a signifier in the most ominous of terms. I think about the words of John F. Kennedy, inscribed on the wall at the Kennedy Center. Kennedy spoke of an America that was unafraid of grace and beauty. I think about the writers and the teachers who made me. Everyone from Dr. Daniel Omatosho Black at Clark Atlanta University to the author Toni Morrison, the poet Nikki Giovanni. I think about how they all authored the story of our overcoming. America is actually built on struggle, and it's obviously impossible to decouple American history from a genocidal, hyper-patriarchal, hyper-capitalist frame and origin story. But the idea of democracy itself is a radical idea. The Constitution itself is a critical theory. It describes a way, a populist way that requires participation in order to actually make the country thrive. In order to fully participate in the democracy, you have to sublimate or suppress your apathy. My partners at Sozo Artists and I think about the idea that the way to turn apathy into empathy is to infuse inspiration as a conversion element. These museums, these Smithsonian museums, inspire folks because they distill the story of our overcoming. Even if you entered one of the Smithsonian institutions apathetic as to the idea of struggle or overcoming, you are inspired inside of that institution and you leave a more compassionate and more empathetic human being. So, this description of what the Smithsonian institutions do, particularly, what we call the Blacksonian here locally, that description is severely un-American and disconnected from the American promise. But maybe more critically, it minimizes the opportunity to generate empathy among not only the citizens of this country, but visitors from all over the world.
Mark Bamuthi Joseph, I want to thank you so much for being with me.
Are you paving over the grass here?
What was happening is that's supposed to have events. Every event you have, it's soaking wet.
Yeah.
It's soaking wet, and people can't. And the women with the high heels, it's just too much.
That's who did the Kavanaugh.
That's where
Kavanaugh
we did.
thing.
That's right.
Amy Coney Barrett.
And the grass just, it doesn't work, and we have a gorgeous stone and everything else.
Okay.
But, we use it for press conferences, and it doesn't work because the people fall into the wet.
It's clear that Trump has no respect for the institutions and individuals that have shaped America's history. His actions are a deliberate attempt to erase the progress made by leaders like Jimmy Carter and the Kennedys. It's imperative that we hope for a return to sanity and leadership, where the rule of law is upheld and respect for tradition and progress is restored. Only then can we begin to heal the damage inflicted by Trump's destructive policies and behaviors. And it must be without them as well. They cannot lead us forward positively, period. And they cannot be trusted. All these developments point to a disturbing trend among Republicans, where they are openly admitting their disdain for democratic institutions and the rule of law. It's essential for Americans to recognize this threat and take a stand against it to protect the very foundations of their democracy. I want to thank each and every one of you for being part of this journey. Your engagement and support mean everything to me. If you'd like to support our mission further, be sure to check out our upcoming videos and merchandise, with partial proceeds going to institutions like the NAACP and the ACLU and other advocates of civil rights. I want to thank each and every one of you. If you haven't already, please like my video, subscribe to my channel, be sure to hit the notifications, and share it on your platforms to help spread the message. Together we can make a change, and we must stand up and demand change. As always, please be kind to yourselves and be kind to others. Have a blessed day.